John Wick 5 has been confirmed at CinemaCon, with Keanu Reeves set to return to the role and the film to be directed by Stahelski. Now, over the last few months, Keanu Reeves had stated he was unsure of a return to the character, being as blunt as saying the character is dead, but also stating you can never say never, but he doesn't know if his knees can handle it. At 60 years old, he is returning for the 5th installment in the John Wick franchise, though he is already set to reprise the role in Ballerina, which comes out later this year, a spin-off from the film series starring Ana de Armas. Despite being 60 years old, Keanu Reeves doesn't seem to be giving up on this franchise just yet. John Wick Chapter 4 was seemingly going to be the last installment of the franchise, with John Wick actually being killed off at the end of that, though it was left ambiguous in case he wanted to return to the role in the future. And it was said that Keanu Reeves and director Chad Stahelski wouldn't return to the franchise unless they felt there was a story worth telling. So clearly they've come up with an idea that has got Keanu Reeves and Chad Stahelski excited to return to these films, and I'm very excited to see what they can come up with. At CinemaCon, it was also announced that Donnie Yen would be starring and directing in a spin-off from his character of Caine, who appeared in John Wick Chapter 4, and we're also getting a prequel animated film, which will reportedly tell the story of him leaving the assassin life behind him and finding love in his life. Obviously, the first John Wick movie saw his wife die of an illness and left him with a little puppy who ends up getting killed, and that is what sparks off the franchise of John Wick going on a rampage, getting revenge. To me, the John Wick franchise has evolved very much so from the first film and is now a staple of modern action cinema, and I'm very excited to see what the next film has to offer. I do wonder if they're going to go down some supernatural element because of the character supposedly dying at the end of Chapter 4. I feel that's not what the audience necessarily wants. I feel like they want kind of more of the same, but sort of turning it up to 11, as it were, on the action sequences and just the globe-trotting adventures he goes on in each of the movies. Chad Stahelski's next project is reportedly the Highlander reboot, which is set to star Henry Cavill, which is supposed to start shooting this year, probably for a 2026 release date, so I reckon this 5th installment of the John Wick franchise will end up shooting sometime next year for a 2027 release date at the earliest. I am aware that there was the series The Continental that told the prequel story to some of the John Wick saga following a young Winston, although that didn't seem to do that well, and maybe a lot is riding on the release of Ballerina, which is coming out in just a few months, starring Ana de Armas, and if that film is going to be well received by the audience, then we could potentially get more spin-offs of characters from the John Wick universe. As I mentioned, Caine, as played by Donnie Yen, is already getting his own movie, which was announced at CinemaCon. Not sure if that will shoot before or after John Wick 5 goes into production. In my opinion, it'll probably come out before John Wick 5, but we'll have to wait and see. And to be honest, we've been introduced to a lot of cool characters in the John Wick movies, and I would happily see spin-offs or just see the characters return in future installments, as well as seeing a whole new host of characters introduced in John Wick Part 5, for example. Following a younger John Wick in the animated movie is probably something that the audience is going to like, and doing it in the animated style will allow a certain element of supernatural abilities to be shown. I think the films do a very good job keeping it realistic to as much as possible, but if animation, you can really do something very stylistic, more so than you can do live action. And it's unsure if Keanu Reeves is going to return to voice the character in that, although I imagine he will. Despite being excited to see what further action sequences they can come up with for Keanu Reeves to take on, what countries he can visit, and what adversaries he can fight and actors they can cast in these roles, I do feel that John Wick Chapter 4 had a decent and good ending for the character, but considering the fact that the character of John Wick is going to appear in Ballerina, and that is a prequel movie, and it's set between the events of Part 3 and Part 4, that they don't want John Wick's final appearance on the big screen to be in a spin-off movie. So I can see them wanting to go out with a bigger bang with John Wick Chapter 5, and we'll have to see where they go from there, but I could easily see them doing a couple more movies. This film franchise has been quite profitable for Lionsgate. It's generated over $1 billion at the global box office, and they're hoping to take this brand further and further. And as I've said, there's no limit to the spin-offs they can do with all these cool characters they are introducing, as well as the potential of doing animated spin-offs, animated series, and even live-action series like they've already done. I do hope they get to a point where they want to retire the John Wick character, though, which I thought they would have done with the 4th film, but if Keanu Reeves is game to keep going and we have other characters introduced in those films to kind of take over the mantle of the series, that seems to be what they're doing with the Ballerina movie, although from my understanding Ballerina was originally written just to be some generic action movie, and it was incorporated into the John Wick universe during a rewrite when Lionsgate acquired the script. I'm not sure if that's 100% true, but that's what I've read online. But there's plenty of room for the John Wick universe to expand, and I'm excited to see Keanu Reeves return. And to be honest, I feel like there's a lot of excitement for more John Wick films, and if they had the appetite to do it, I could see them doing a film every 2 years with John Wick and then a spin-off in the middle. But we've seen this happen with big franchises before where they just milk it to death. And hopefully they don't go to that route. Maybe we just get one final John Wick movie with Keanu Reeves, and then the spin-offs carry the franchise and the IP into the future. Because when we've seen the likes of Star Wars and even what Marvel is doing now, the films are just getting stale and people are just losing interest in the brand. John Wick could have easily been a standalone movie and it ended there, but they kept going. They could have written a conclusion for the 3rd movie, Parabellum, but they didn't, and they wanted to do John Wick 4, and seemingly they wrote the end to the series with John Wick Part 4, but, they keep going and they keep going. So we'll have to see if this just ends on a high again, or if they're just going to keep milking the John Wick character. And to be honest, I don't think Keanu Reeves is too keen to do this forever, because he's mentioned about he's an older man now. He is 60. We have seen stars like Liam Neeson take on action roles a lot later and have success with that, but the John Wick character, it won't be appropriate to see him stay in this role when he's 70 or even 80 years old, to be honest. But I'm excited to see what John Wick Chapter 5 can offer the audience, and I'm game to see it when it comes out. Let me know your thoughts on the announcements about the John Wick films, with Keanu Reeves returning to John Wick 5, the Donnie Yen Caine spin-off, and the prequel animated movie. Let me know in the comments below. Give this video a like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and please click the bell icon to receive notifications for all of my future videos. That's it for now. Thanks for tuning in.